Have you ever lost everything, your love, your hope, the future you held so close and thought you'd never rise again? Picture a woman whose world crumbled in an instant, betrayed by the one person she trusted to carry her through the darkness. This is Susan Miller's story, a tale of heartbreak born from a miscarriage and a husband who turned his back when she needed him most. Lucas, her charming but heartless husband, didn't just leave her. He replaced her, flaunting a new life while she drowned in grief. But Susan's journey doesn't end in despair. It leads to a glittering yacht gala where Lucas, now a mere employee, will face the wife he discarded, radiant with a new love and a son he never imagined. 2 years ago, Susan's life was a warm Miami apartment, filled with the soft glow of anticipation for her first child with Lucas. They'd spent evenings sketching nursery plans, picking names, dreaming of a family bound by love. The miscarriage stole that dream, a silent loss that shattered Susan's heart and left her grasping for meaning. Lucas, once her anchor, grew cold, his eyes accusing her of weakness, as if her grief was a burden he couldn't bear. By the time he walked out, blaming her for their broken dreams, Susan was a shadow, her spirit fractured by loss and abandonment. The divorce was a blur of cold legal documents and Lucas's absence, his new life already blooming with Mia, a vibrant 20-something who filled the void Susan left behind. Susan fled to her parents' modest home in a quiet Florida suburb, where grief wrapped her like a heavy fog. Depression stole her days, her nights haunted by the echo of a nursery never used, her worth eroded by Lucas's cruel dismissal. She felt invisible, a woman erased by the man who'd vowed to stand by her side forever. Yet, buried beneath that pain, a spark waited, ready to ignite a new chapter she couldn't yet see. That spark came in the form of Grayson Holt, a billionaire yacht mogul whose kindness would pull Susan from the depths of despair. His proposal wasn't just a promise of love, it was a mirror reflecting the strength she'd forgotten she had. 2 years later, Susan will step aboard Grayson's yacht at his annual gala, no longer the broken woman Lucas abandoned. She'll cradle her 1-year-old son, Liam, her smile a testament to her rebirth, as Grayson introduces her as his wife. Lucas, now an employee in Grayson's empire, will stand frozen, his new wife Mia at his side, jealousy burning in his eyes as he realizes what he lost. The Yacht Gala, set against Miami's shimmering coastline, will be Susan's stage for poetic justice, a moment to rewrite her story in front of the elite. Lucas, expecting to charm his billionaire boss, will find himself outshined by the woman he dismissed as weak, her radiance a silent rebuke. Susan's journey, from a grieving ex-wife to a confident mother and partner, proves that the deepest wounds can forge the greatest strength. Grayson's love is her reward, but her true victory lies in the life she rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. What do you think Susan's greatest triumph will be? Her new family, her moment of revenge, or something deeper? This story is for every woman who's been underestimated, who's faced loss and betrayal yet found the courage to rise again. At the gala, Susan won't just face Lucas, she'll show him the life he threw away, her son's laughter and Grayson's pride a testament to her resilience. Her journey is a beacon for anyone who's ever felt invisible, proving that pain can be transformed into power. Stay with us for a tale of heartbreak turned to hope, where a woman's redemption shines brighter than any yacht's lights. The Miami Marina sparkled under the midday sun, a dazzling stretch of turquoise water where luxury yachts bobbed like jewels in a crown. Grayson Holt's yacht empire, Holt Maritime, ruled this world, its sleek vessels a symbol of wealth and ambition, docked in rows that gleamed with polished chrome and teak. The air carried the tang of salt water and the hum of power, clients in designer sunglasses sipping cocktails, brokers sealing deals with practiced smiles. At the center of this glittering stage stood Lucas Bennett, a mid-level sales manager who moved through the marina like a man born to rule it. His tailored blazer hugged his athletic frame, his dark hair swept back with just enough charm to turn heads, his laughter a calculated note that drew clients and colleagues alike. Lucas was in his element, A king in a kingdom of opulence, his past with Susan a distant memory he'd buried without a second thought. To him, Susan was a faded chapter, a woman broken by grief who'd failed to keep up with his ambition. He'd left her after the miscarriage, convinced her sorrow was a weight dragging him down, and found Mia, a 20-something with a radiant smile and an Instagram feed bursting with beach selfies. Mia was his perfect accessory, her auburn curls bouncing as she clung to his arm at company events, her laughter echoing his own. Together, they were a vision of success, a couple that turned heads at Holt Maritime's cocktail hours, where Lucas pitched yachts to millionaires with the ease of a man who believed he deserved every applause. In the glass-walled office overlooking the marina, Lucas thrived, his desk adorned with photos of him and Mia kissing on a yacht's deck, toasting at a rooftop bar. He'd climbed the ranks at Holt Maritime by leveraging his charisma, closing deals with a wink and a promise, his confidence unshaken by the past he'd left behind. Susan's name never crossed his lips except in fleeting moments when colleagues mentioned her, prompting a dismissive shrug. She couldn't handle it, he'd say, his tone laced with pity, as if her loss was a personal failing. He'd erased her from his narrative, rewriting their marriage as a mistake he'd corrected by choosing Mia, whose youth and vibrancy mirrored the life he craved. Mia played her part flawlessly, her designer dresses and flirtatious banter a constant reminder of Lucas's upgrade. At client dinners, she'd laugh at his stories, her hand resting on his, her presence reinforcing his image as a man who had it all. She reveled in the attention, her social media posts captioned with hashtags like #PowerCouple and #LivingTheDream, each one a subtle jab at the woman she'd replaced. Lucas encouraged it, basking in the envy of his peers, who saw him as untouchable, a rising star in Grayson Holt's empire, destined for a promotion that would cement his status. He'd already set his sights on the annual Yacht Gala, a lavish event where he planned to pitch a record-breaking deal to impress Grayson himself, unaware that his past was about to resurface. The gala, a glittering affair aboard Grayson's flagship yacht, was the pinnacle of Holt Maritime's calendar, drawing Miami's elite and industry titans. Lucas saw it as a stage, a chance to showcase his charm and secure his place at the top. He'd prepared meticulously, rehearsing his pitch with Mia, envisioning the moment Grayson would shake his hand and offer a corner office. His colleagues whispered about his ambition, some with admiration, others with quiet resentment, but none dared challenge him. Mia, draped in a sequined gown, would be at his side, her smile a weapon to charm the room, reinforcing their image as the perfect pair. Yet, beneath the marina sparkle, cracks existed in Lucas's world. His deals, though flashy, often skirted the edges of ethics, his numbers padded to impress clients who didn't look too closely. He relied on his charm to smooth over questions, confident that his star would never dim. He didn't know that Susan, the woman he dismissed as broken, was rebuilding herself, her pain forging a strength he'd never seen. He didn't know that Grayson Holt, the billionaire whose approval he craved, had already found someone far more remarkable. As Lucas stood on the marina's edge, Mia's laughter ringing in his ears, he believed he was untouchable, a man who'd rewritten his story without consequences. The Yacht Gala loomed, a night he thought would crown his success, but the tides were turning, and Susan's return would shake the foundation of his carefully crafted empire. In the quiet of a Florida suburb, Susan Miller's days once blurred into a haze of grief, her parents' modest ranch house a sanctuary from the world Lucas had shattered. The guest room, with its faded floral curtains and creaking twin bed, was where she'd retreated after the divorce, her heart heavy with the loss of her unborn child and the husband who'd blamed her for it. But now, 2 years later, that same room buzzed with a new energy. Susan sat at a small desk, her laptop open to event planning spreadsheets, her fingers dancing across the keys with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. The fog of depression was lifting, replaced by a fire kindled by an unexpected encounter that would redefine her life. It began at a charity auction her parents hosted in their backyard, a humble event to raise funds for a local women's shelter. Susan, still fragile, had helped her mother arrange tables, her presence more duty than desire. Grayson Holt, a billionaire whose yacht empire dominated Miami's marina, arrived as a donor, his warm hazel eyes and easy smile cutting through the crowd. He wasn't the aloof tycoon she'd expected. He asked about her role in the event, listening as she spoke of her knack for organizing, a skill she'd honed planning community events with Lucas before their world fell apart. Grayson saw something Lucas never had, a resilience beneath her quiet demeanor, and their conversations stretched late into the evening, his kindness a lifeline pulling her from despair. Susan's transformation wasn't instant, but Grayson's belief in her sparked a shift. She threw herself into event planning, starting a small business that turned local weddings and fundraisers into seamless affairs, her meticulous touch earning glowing reviews. Her parents' home, once a place of retreat, became her headquarters, the dining table covered with fabric swatches and vendor lists. Her mother, Ellen, was her fiercest ally, brewing coffee and sharing stories of her own struggles, reminding Susan that pain could forge strength. "You're more than what he took from you," Ellen said, her words a balm to Susan's wounded spirit. With each event she planned, Susan stood taller, her wardrobe shifting from oversized sweaters to tailored dresses, her smile no longer forced but radiant. Grayson's presence grew steady, his visits to her parents' home evolving from casual check-ins to dates along Miami's waterfront, where they shared dreams over sunset walks. He proposed 6 months ago, not with a grand gesture, but with quiet sincerity on a beach, the waves whispering promises of a new life. Susan said yes, not because he was a billionaire, but because he saw her as an equal, a partner whose strength matched his own. Their son, Liam, born a year ago, was the final piece of her healing, his giggles filling the house with a joy Susan thought she'd never reclaim. She cradled him now, her heart full, as she prepared for Grayson's annual Yacht Gala, an event she'd helped plan with her newfound expertise. The gala was days away, a glittering showcase aboard Grayson's flagship yacht, where Miami's elite would gather under starlit skies. Susan knew Lucas would be there, a sales manager in Grayson's company, likely strutting with Mia, expecting to charm his way to a promotion. She didn't plan to confront him directly. Her victory would be her presence, her son in her arms, her role as Grayson's wife a silent rebuke to the man who'd called her broken. She rehearsed her entrance in her parents' living room, practicing how she'd carry Liam, her gown chosen to shimmer under the yacht's lights. Ellen watched, her eyes misty with pride. "Show them who you are," she said, and Susan nodded, her resolve stealing. Susan wasn't the woman Lucas had left, grieving and invisible. She was a mother, a planner, a wife-to-be whose strength had been forged in loss. The gala would be her stage, not for revenge, but for redemption, a chance to show the world, and herself, that she was unbreakable. Grayson's love was a gift, but her true triumph was the life she'd rebuilt, piece by piece, from the ashes of her past. As she closed her laptop, Liam's tiny hand in hers, she felt ready, not just to face Lucas, but to claim the future she deserved, one where her light would outshine his shadow forever. The night air over Miami's marina was warm and electric, the horizon aglow with the city's skyline as Grayson Holt's flagship yacht, Stellar Wave, gleamed like a floating palace. Twinkling fairy lights draped the deck, their reflections dancing on the water, while champagne flutes clinked and soft jazz mingled with the lapping waves. Miami's elite, billionaires, influencers, and industry moguls mingled in a swirl of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, their laughter rising above the hum of wealth and ambition. At the heart of the gala, Lucas Bennett held court near the yacht's bow, his navy blazer crisp, his smile a polished weapon as he pitched a yacht deal to a cluster of clients. Mia, his young wife, sparkled beside him in a sequined red dress, her auburn curls catching the light, her hand resting possessively on his arm. To the guests, they were the picture of success, a rising star and his glamorous partner, poised to impress Grayson Holt himself. Lucas's eyes gleamed with the certainty of a man who believed this night would seal his ascent, unaware that the past he'd buried was about to step aboard. Susan Miller entered the gala, her presence a quiet thunderclap that turned heads and hushed whispers. Her emerald gown flowed like liquid starlight, hugging her frame with a confidence that seemed to radiate from within. In her arms, 1-year-old Liam giggled, his tiny tuxedo a charming echo of his mother's elegance, his dark curls mirroring Grayson's. Susan's smile was serene, her eyes bright with a strength forged from years of pain, a stark contrast to the broken woman Lucas had left behind. Grayson stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her back, his billionaire status understated in a simple black suit, his hazel eyes warm with pride. The crowd parted as they moved forward, guests murmuring about the new Mrs. Holt, their curiosity a palpable wave. Susan felt their gazes, not as judgment but as validation, her event planning expertise evident in the gala's flawless details, the floral arrangements she'd designed, the seamless flow of servers she'd orchestrated. Lucas's laughter faltered mid-sentence as he caught sight of Susan, his glass freezing halfway to his lips. Mia's smile stiffened, her fingers tightening on Lucas's arm as she followed his gaze. The clients he'd been charming turned, sensing the shift, their eyes darting between Lucas's paling face and Susan's radiant composure. Grayson stepped forward, his voice commanding yet warm, addressing the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce my wife, Susan Holt, the heart behind tonight's event and the mother of our son, Liam." The words landed like a gavel, and a ripple of applause broke out, the guests captivated by Susan's grace. Lucas's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on Liam, a child he'd never imagined Susan would have, a symbol of the life she'd built without him. Mia's expression soured, her sequins suddenly garish next to Susan's understated elegance, her role as the new wife diminished in the shadow of Susan's triumph. Susan met Lucas's gaze, her smile unwavering, not a trace of the grief he'd once exploited. She didn't speak to him directly, her presence was enough, a silent rebuke to the man who'd called her weak. Instead, she addressed a client who complimented the gala's decor, her voice steady as she shared her vision for the event, her expertise drawing nods of respect. Grayson beamed, adding, "Susan's talent has elevated Holt Maritime's events to new heights." The praise was a spotlight, illuminating her worth in front of the elite, and Lucas's clients drifted toward her, their interest shifting from his pitch to her story. Mia whispered something sharp to Lucas, her insecurity bubbling over, but he barely responded, his eyes fixed on Susan and Liam, jealousy etching lines into his once confident face. The power dynamic shifted irrevocably when Grayson, in a quiet aside to his team, reassigned Lucas's latest deal to a senior manager, a subtle demotion that stung more than a public firing. "We need someone with integrity," Grayson said, his words carrying to Lucas, who stood frozen, his ambition unraveling. The guests, sensing the tension, whispered about Lucas's faltering star, their attention now on Susan, who moved through the crowd with Liam, her laughter blending with his giggles. A prominent client, a yacht enthusiast, approached her, praising her work and asking for her card, a moment that cemented her professional triumph. Lucas tried to regain his footing, offering a weak joke to a nearby guest, but the room had moved on, his charm no longer enough to hold it. As the night wound down, Susan stood at the yacht's railing, Liam asleep in her arms, Grayson's arm around her shoulders. The Miami skyline shimmered, a canvas of her new beginning. Lucas, lingering near the bar with Mia, watched from a distance, his expression a mix of shock and envy, the weight of his choices settling like an anchor. Susan didn't need his regret. She'd already won, not by confronting him, but by living a life he could never touch. The gala was her stage, her family her crown, and her strength the truest victory. The night belonged to her, and as the yacht sailed on, Lucas was left behind, a footnote in a story rewritten by a woman who refused to be erased. The Miami sunrise painted the sky in hues of coral and gold, its light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Susan Holt's event planning studio, a sleek space overlooking the marina where yachts bobbed like dreams on the water. 6 months had passed since the Yacht Gala where Susan, radiant with her son Liam in her arms, had upstaged Lucas Bennett, her ex-husband, in front of Miami's elite. The memory of his stunned expression, his smugness dissolving as Grayson introduced her as his wife, lingered like a quiet victory, but Susan's life had moved far beyond that moment. Her studio, once a dream born in her parents' dining room, was now a hub of creativity, its walls adorned with sketches of gala designs and thank-you notes from clients. Susan stood at her desk, reviewing plans for a charity ball, her tailored white dress a symbol of the confidence she'd reclaimed, her laughter blending with the soft coos of Liam, playing nearby with a toy sailboat. Lucas's world, meanwhile, had unraveled. The gala had been his undoing. Grayson's subtle demotion stripped him of his prized yacht deal, relegating him to minor accounts at Holt Maritime. Whispers of his overinflated pitches and questionable ethics spread among colleagues, eroding his once golden reputation. Mia, his young wife, grew restless, her social media posts dwindling from glamorous selfies to vague complaints about trust and new chapters. By spring, she'd left him, her departure announced in a curt Instagram story, leaving Lucas alone in a rented condo far from the marina's sparkle. Industry gossip painted him as a cautionary tale, his startup venture, a desperate bid to reclaim his status, collapsing under mismanagement and debt. Susan heard these updates through colleagues, not with glee but with a quiet detachment, as if Lucas were a stranger whose choices no longer touched her. Susan's life, by contrast, was a tapestry of purpose and joy. Her event planning business, Holt Events, had soared, with contracts for high-profile weddings and corporate galas across Miami. She mentored a small team, including a young assistant, Clara, whose ambition reminded Susan of her own rediscovery. Her days were filled with site visits and client calls, but her heart was fullest at home, where Liam's toddling steps and infectious giggles anchored her. Grayson, her billionaire husband, was no savior. He was her partner, his yacht empire benefiting from her creative touch, their marriage a dance of mutual respect. They'd moved into a waterfront home, its airy rooms filled with Liam's toys and photos of their quiet lakeside wedding, a ceremony where Susan's parents beamed, her mother Ellen whispering, "You found your light again." Susan's success wasn't about outshining Lucas, it was about building a life where her worth was undeniable, her love for Liam and Grayson the truest measure of her triumph. One evening, as Susan and Grayson planned a family trip on their yacht, he took her hand, his hazel eyes soft. "You've transformed my world, Susan," he said, his voice steady with admiration. "Not just the business, but me." She smiled, her heart swelling, knowing their love was rooted in her strength, not her need. They spoke of expanding Holt Events, perhaps opening a branch in Key West, a dream Susan once thought impossible. Liam, now napping in Grayson's arms, was their shared future, a symbol of the life she'd rebuilt from the ashes of loss. The pain of her miscarriage and Lucas's betrayal felt distant, like a storm that had passed, leaving clear skies in its wake. A year later, Susan stood at the helm of a charity gala she'd orchestrated, a starlit event on a Holt yacht that raised funds for women's shelters. Clara, her assistant, presented an idea for a community outreach program, and Susan listened, her nod encouraging, her words, "Run with it, Clara," echoing the support she'd received from her mother. The guests, including Miami's mayor, praised her vision, unaware of the journey behind it. A news alert pinged on her phone. Lucas's startup had folded, his name absent from industry circles, a footnote in a city that moved on without him. Susan closed the alert, her focus on a guest who complimented Liam's charm, her son now a confident toddler stealing smiles. She felt no need for his regret. Her life was her answer, a testament to resilience over revenge. Susan's redemption wasn't in the gala's spotlight or even Grayson's ring, but in the quiet moments, Liam's hand in hers, Grayson's laughter, her team's trust. She'd turned her deepest wounds, loss, betrayal, despair, into a foundation for a life she'd built herself. The Miami skyline glowed beyond her studio, a canvas of endless possibility, and Susan Holt, mother, wife, visionary, was ready for whatever came next. Her story was a beacon for any woman who'd been broken yet dared to rise, proving that pain could forge power. What was Susan's greatest victory? Her family, her career, or the strength she found within? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did her triumph inspire you? If it did, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of their worth, and subscribe for more stories of women rewriting their futures. Thank you for joining us on this journey of redemption.